Okay, we have a short video on a massively important figure in Chinese modern history. When we left off, Mao Zedong had died due to natural causes, and we won't say China was in a disaster, but economically, China was behind. In relationships with the other world powers, China was not together. They had fallen out with the Soviet Union. There wasn't relations with the United States, and those were the two big world powers. So China was fairly isolated and behind economically, militarily, and Mao Zedong, that is what he left when he passed on. His legacy was fine. People still loved him, and he would be forever remembered. But where was China going to go? And so Deng Xiaoping rises to power in the Communist Party, and he radically alters China's economic trajectory. He institutes 4 modernizations, one being altering the agriculture, slowly getting away from the communes, a push for industry to create urbanization, cities and factories, to learn from the world and make a huge push for math and science, and finally to modernize the Chinese military. Deng Xiaoping is going to take away economic communism and institute authoritarian capitalism, where you have the authority of the communist government planning a lot of the economy, but also allowing capitalism and people to start businesses to have that thriving profit motive. It's going to be a kind of little slow progress over, and he's going to do it in little areas and special zones. Not everyone wants this to happen, so he goes a little slow, but in the end, it sets up over the late 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. It has taken China to a powerhouse in the world economy. They're the second largest economy in the world. So let's get going. Okay, so Shanghai 1994, we see the first skyscrapers. It's starting to work. Okay, he's getting this going in the 80s, and in the early 90s, the economy's starting to get up there. Okay, he becomes the president, quote unquote. His policies shift the nation from a centrally planned economy, okay, that's where the communists, directors are making all the decisions, to a more market-based one. That's where people have their own businesses, and if there's a demand for something, businesses grow and supply that demand. Oh, let's go back. That right there is an acceptable example of socialist realism. There we go. Socialist realism, where you get some very upbeat, very powerful looking figures. Look for that in any time communist art in the USSR or in China. Okay, it's I don't know how to explain it other than it will look something like this, with a couple figures and very patriotic and very powerful figures. Socialist realism. Okay, let's take a second to look at this. Okay, GDP means gross domestic product. Just think about the value of everything a country makes per year. Okay, so in 1960, China made less than $1 trillion worth of stuff. Same in 1970, same in 1980, but we see it starting to rise. It starts to rise with this new economic ideas and in the 90s, and then it starts to really take off in the 90s and the 2000s. Okay, so we're getting $12 trillion produced in the 20-teens, as opposed to in 2000 we were getting $1 trillion. So this just means China as a country is producing so much more goods. look at this, the change in poverty. So what this means is the government sets an income that's a poverty line. And if you're below the poverty line, you're considered in poverty. And if you make more than the amount, you're considered out of poverty. So regardless of what these numbers are, 0, 50, 100, let's look at it. As China grows using Deng Xiaoping's policy of free market, people having their own business, look at the decline in households that are living in poverty in China. It said that millions, upwards of 400, 500 millions of people are taken out of poverty as the Chinese economy grows. And that's all because of the modernizations, getting away from a government command communist economy and getting into this authoritarian capitalism. A communist government allowing the business to run. He also opens up to the world, visiting the United States, which is key because now China can start trading with the United States, okay? So it's so much easier to grow your economy when you're trading with other countries. And you got to understand, China was communist. So the average person in America did not have a good view on China as a government, nor did the average person in China have a good view of the US, because it's too different. But this was during the Cold War. And so opening up diplomatic relations went a long way. As time went on, I developed enormous regard for this doughy little man with the melancholy eyes. Henry Kissinger was a very, very important Secretary of State. Henry Kissinger, a very, very important Secretary of State of the United States. Keep a low profile and never take the lead. China was growing, and they're just taking it slow, but they're always moving forward. The government was having a plan. That's Shenzhen today, and it is an amazingly huge, thriving economic city. So Deng Xiaoping is looking at that city as saying, well, yes, when we institute these policies of more free market and we allow a different type of economy, it can work. Okay, he did do the Tiananmen Square massacre, and when people gathered and protested for freedom, the government very strongly put down those protests, okay? So the message was clear. Certain areas can have some economic freedom, but cannot have political freedom. Okay, Deng Xiaoping dies in 1997, so about 20 years of leading China, and the general path of the economy of China has stayed in the direction that he set up. It is authoritarian capitalism. The communist government is going to control and have lots of interest in certain sectors, such as energy, such as transportation. So the government directs a lot of the economy and then lets business owners create businesses and deal and sell within China and the world. And that has produced unbelievably productive economic effects as we are going into the 2020s. All right, see ya.